prayers of Brahma have been completed. So now we switched over to taking this hierarchy from Vaikunta Dham, Ayodhya Dham, Dwarka Dham, Vrindavan Dham. And part of what there's several inspirations, but one of the inspirations is our acharyas are very expert at helping the reader of their commentary appreciate the super excellent feature of Vrindavan, the love of the residents of Vrindavan for Krishna, the love that Krishna has for the residents of Vrindavan, the super excellent position of Braja Prema. And that kind of leads to this topic, that is, what about the spiritual realms that are not in Vrindavan? They're also perfect. And then there's perfect, more perfect, most perfect, and that rolls off the tongue very easily. What does that mean? And so we started yesterday, day before yesterday, discussing, just reading basically, not so much discussion, the Kumara's visit to Vaikunta, Canto 3, Chapter 15. They didn't make it inside, they made to the 7th gate. And then from there we went to Brihat Bhagavatamrita, where Gopa Kumar makes his journey number 2 beyond the coverings of the universe into the spiritual sky, past Shivaloka into the Vaikunta realm. He's at the gate, outer gate of Vaikunta, and he sees what he sees. And the associates, because they have to get permission, and they get permission, they start to take him through the various gates, and then he comes before the Supreme Lord Narayan, and he loses it. Oh, Gopal! He starts running to embrace him. And we're going to hear something very interesting that conforms with what Scripture says. Actually, it's within the sections that we read about Indra's prayers. The Lord Krishna is the source of everything, and everything includes all the avatars, or all the various manifestations of the form of the Supreme Lord. And devotees take on forms that pleases them to please the Supreme Lord. This is even in Vaikunta. And the Supreme Lord assumes various forms to reciprocate the love of the devotees, their regard for him. He appears according to their mood of love. He's not obliged to do that, it's just his loving nature. He presents forms according to the love of the residents, the love of his devotees. So there's a certain kind of love in Vaikunta. And even within the realm of Vaikunta, there are different moods. So the devotees assume different forms, and the Lord assumes different forms. Although he has his original, you can say, original form, forearm form, etc. But when Gopa Kumar sees Narayan and says, "Oh, Krishna, oh, Gopal," that's who he sees. So let's continue from there. So this is the last verse that we read. This is now part 2, chapter 4, entitled Vaikunta, the Spiritual Kingdom. And we read text 98, so I'll read it again. And mainly it's just reading the verses, a little bit of touching commentary. Sanatana Goswami. After some time, by the Lord's kindness, I obtained the intimate personal service of fanning him with a chamara. And I constantly felt the bliss of seeing the Lord as I played for him on my flute. By habit of my past practice, I would sometimes loudly repeat in various ways, "Oh, Krishna, Gopal!" And commentary says the seed of discontent with living in Vaikunta, the place of no anxiety, was beginning to take root in his heart. I always sang openly in excellent prayers of his activities in Gokula, which reveal his greatest glories. The residents of that place, laughing with hearts melted by affection, often came to me when I was outside the Lord's presence and spoke to me in no uncertain terms like teachers instructing a student. The residents of Sri Vaikunta said, "You should not address the Lord of Lords like this, and don't sing his praises that way. Just recite the standard prayers about his unlimited, most amazing glories." Vaikunta style. To annihilate the wicked and protect the uncivilized, and to cheat Kamsa, the Lord disguised himself as a cowherd boy by his illusory energy. Commentary. As far as these Vaikuntavasis are concerned, the Lord only pretends to be a cowherd boy in order to deceive the evil Kamsa of Mathura. Krishna had to cheat Kamsa to get rid of wicked demons like Putana and so forth. So they have their way of looking at Krishna's Braja Lila. Carrying on. Devotees of the Lord have very little regard for tales of his illusory affairs. Such narrations may be suitable in the beginning of devotional practice, but they do not factually glorify the Lord. But some of those residents of Vaikunta said, among the Lord's inconceivable activities, those playful pastimes are also his. So there is no fault in chanting about them. There's differences of opinion in Vaikunta. Then a few extremely exalted devotees stopped the others and angrily said, "Really? Why are you talking like this, as if you had no intelligence? Krishna is so kind to his devotees that Sankirtan of any of his activities is glorious and beneficial and satisfying to our Divine Master." Then within the commentary, there's this nice reference to Padma Purana that translates Krishna speaking, "Although I annihilate all the Danavas within a few minutes, I perform various pastimes just to entertain my devotees." Although I can annihilate all the Danavas within a few minutes, I perform various pastimes just to entertain my devotees. Just as the fish, the tortoise, and the bird nourish their offspring by, respectively, watching them, meditating on them, and keeping them in physical contact, so do I maintain my devotees. O lotus-born Brahma, though Krishna's pastimes are for his devotees' pleasure. Gopa Kumar said, at first, the words of the Vaikunta Vasis, the first group, had me feel embarrassed. Then I felt satisfied. Although, in truth, the inner core of my heart was not fully appeased. This is this discontent, moving him forward to the next position. I felt somewhat discouraged that I couldn't see the unique form, pastimes, and other features of the lotus feet of my worshipful Lord, Gopal. But then I would see Lord Vaikuntanath, the most exalted knower of everything, as the darling son of Nanda Maharaj. See Lakshmi and Dara as Radhika and Chandravali, and see the Lord's personal attendants as the young boys of Braja. Commentary reads, not that Gopa Kumar produced this transformation by his own mental power, rather, it was done by Lord Narayana, who is Sarvagya Shiromani. He knows everything. And the Supreme Master, Prabhu. Since Lord Narayan is the greatest of all omniscient mystics, he knew that Gopa Kumar's mind was disturbed, and since the Lord has all divine energies at hand, he easily made this arrangement to relieve Gopa Kumar's anxiety. So, to Gopa Kumar, that's the form that he saw by the Lord's arrangement. Yet, my mind would still feel sad because I couldn't see the Lord and his companions play as they do here in the land of Braja. Occasionally, in the gardens of Vaikunta, I would see my Lord appear in Braja, performing his pastimes, and I would see the gardens filled with herds of cows. At other times, I would see him sitting, as usual, on his throne in all splendor, but looking just like my Lord Gopal. Even so, because I knew he was the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and because I remembered that I had come to Vaikunta Loka, feelings of respect and reverence would arise in me, and these would block my pure love and leave my mind dissatisfied. The special favors I had received from Gopal Dev in my meditation, his embraces, his kisses, the mercy I had directly obtained, oh, these I couldn't have here, though they are what I desired, so I felt afflicted. Sometimes the Lord would secretly go with a few of his intimate associates. Then everyone else who had been near him would lament, unable to see their master. When I would ask what the Lord was doing on these outings, everyone would keep the fact from me like privileged secrets. No one would disclose anything clearly. Then, at the very moment I inquired, the Lord of the universe would appear before us, putting our distress to an end and expanding our joy to an ocean. Whenever my mind, where the mind goes is really important. Whenever my mind, by its own nature, would become disturbed, the vast splendors of the Vaikunta world would dispel my agitation, as the sun dispels darkness. Whenever it seemed, so there's this tension between majesty and intimacy. And majesty it was powerful. Whenever it seemed that I had not achieved the object of my desire, and when my heart would therefore suffer, as it often had before, I would remember the root cause of my incompleteness. And that understanding itself would drive away the pain. So what's that root cause of incompleteness? And it says here, of course, Ishopanishad says one thing. It's the material kind of incompleteness. And the spiritual kind of incompleteness is he had this strong desire to reach a very special place even beyond Vaikunta. So he was conscious, he was remembering, he's attracted to Krishna. And Narayana knows that. He's the Supreme Lord, he's omniscient. Have not the slightest doubt, I would tell my mind. There's no attainment more desirable than living here in Vaikunta, so why even raise the question? Oh, fickle heart, now use your intelligence, therefore, to cast this lower nature far away. It doesn't belong here. There's nothing greater than to reside in Vaikunta. No greater goal. Consider the hundreds of arguments that support this truth and achieve the highest peace. After thus instructing my mind, I would look at myself in my Sat Chit Ananda form and see myself constantly relishing what seemed the highest happiness, intense and amazing, from worshipping the Supreme Lord in Vaikunta. Thus I resided in Vaikunta, sometimes joyful and sometimes disturbed. Then, one day, Narada found me. It's a new section. Narada and Gopa Kumar. He found me in a secluded place. That crest jewel of merciful persons, the Lord's dearmost devotee, is an ocean of the tastes of the Lord's devotional service. He delighted me by blessing me and touching my head with his hand, same as he had done with Dhruva, which held its friend, the Veena. Then he spoke to me. The great master Narada said, "My dear son of a cowherd, you have received the mercy of the divine Lord of Vaikunta. Yet from the signs of the paleness of your face, you appear depressed, like someone suffering misfortune. Please tell me, what scope could there be for pain and sorrow here? I am most curious, because here I have never seen anyone in such a state." It's Vaikunta, come on. Sri Gopa Kumar said, I was most fortunate to have met that greatest authority, Narada, the most reliable of well-wishers, who was equal to my guru. So I fully disclosed to him what was in my heart, which we already heard. After hearing my whole story, Narada sighed a little, glanced around, drew me near, and compassionately spoke to me in a soft voice, like a secret, very confidential. Shh. Sri Narada said, by a chain of logical reasoning, you have concluded that nothing is higher to achieve than this abode, and you are certainly correct. That the truth cannot be other than this. Even so, you desire to see with your own eyes your worshipable Lord's pleasure pastimes that appear to you in meditation. You want to see those pastimes here in Vaikunta and in full detail. Those pastimes give even the Lord himself the greatest pleasure. They enchant the heart, but only by a special kind of love can they be perceived. They are the most confidential mystery. One can approach them only with the highest degree of prema, like that of the residents of Braja. Surely those pastimes can never be seen by persons like me. He speaks like this again later in Dwarka, we'll hear. It is in a certain world, somewhere above all others, that those pastimes are to be seen, enchanting the Lord's devotees. But by your bhakti for the Lord of the creation, you have come to Vaikunta. How can you see those pastimes here? How can this greatest secret be revealed here in Vaikunta, where the extreme limit of the Lord's all-powerful opulence is displayed? Put aside all this lamentation and just see the divine master of Vaikunta as the same Lord you cherish. Don't consider them two different persons. Then, even here your heart will be flooded with supreme happiness, unlimited and ever increasing. Gopa Kumar said, I then wanted to hear Narada explain from his own mouth certain philosophical conclusions about which I was already thinking. My ears were forcing me to do this. Because of respect and shyness, I couldn't ask him about these matters, but that best of omniscient mystics, the greatest Vaishnava, knew what I was thinking. To give pleasure to my ears and to his own tongue, he briefly expounded on each of the topics I was contemplating. So there's many topics. We'll cover some and skip some. But he's going to go to the first topic about the forms of the living entities in Vaikunta. And then the forms of the Lord of Vaikunta. Don't think that the flocks of animals and birds of this place, or the trees, creepers, bushes, grass, and other vegetation, are made from earth, like ordinary creatures in the mode of ignorance. In fact, these are all personal associates of Sri Krishna, all with spiritual Satchit Ananda bodies. They have such forms to taste the ecstasy of serving the Lord in various ways. They have assumed forms with colors and shapes similar to those of the Lord. They have worshipped as most dear. Having each attained sameness with a particular form of the Lord, they have gained the opulences of various kinds of bodies as sages, demigods, fish, tortoises, human beings, and mystic rishis. Some have become hogs, men, lions, or dwarfs. Some have 3 eyes, 4 arms, or thousands of eyes like the Mahapurusha. Some have assumed bodies with thousands of faces, or the features of such deities as the sun, moon, and the gods of air and fire. Some have 4 arms, or 8, or 12, or more, and various kinds of dress, ornaments, symbols, and other attributes. Now, the standard explanation that we're used to hearing is a little different than that. And the commentary of Sanatana Goswami makes reference to one of them. This is Brahma experiencing Vaikunta. The inhabitants, this is Canto 2, Chapter 9. Quote, translation from that section. The inhabitants of the Vaikunta planets have a glowing sky bluish complexion. Their eyes resemble lotus flowers. Their dress is of yellowish color, and their bodily features are very attractive. They are just the age of growing youths. They all have 4 hands. They are nicely decorated with pearl necklaces with ornamental medallions, and they all appear effulgent. Some are like coral, diamonds, or white lotus fibers in complexion. On their heads and necks, they have garlands, and they wear shining earrings, unquote. Now, the section we just read and coming up also, that it's a different description by Narada that pointed out in the commentary, which says, some Vaikunta devotees appear as human beings because of having attained sarupya. That was already offered to Gopa Kumar, who declined. Others appear as murtis by sarupya, with sage incarnations like Sri Kapila, or as demigods by sarupya, with Manvantar avatars like Lord Satyasena and Lord Vibhu. Others appear as rishis by sarupya, with incarnations like Sri Parashuram, or as fish by sarupya with Lord Matsya, or tortoises with Lord Kurma. Some who worship Shiva or Brahma as representatives of the Supreme appear in bodies with 3 eyes or 4 heads. Some appear like Indra with 1,000 eyes, like Anantashesha with thousands of heads, or like Surya or other demigods. Vedic scriptures like the Indra Shrutis, the mantras glorifying Indra, support such worship of demigods as representatives of the Supreme Lord. In the 5th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, we also find demigods like Surya being worshipped as representatives of the Lord in Plakshadweep, and other divisions of the Bur Loka planetary system. So the puzzle is getting a little clearer, isn't it? Paragraph, the only means for achieving entrance into Vaikunta is pure exclusive love for the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. Ordinary demigod worshippers are never eligible to become residents of Vaikunta, but worshippers who regard Shiva and other demigods as not different from Lord Vishnu achieve special Vaishnava perfection. As the Vamana Purana and other scriptures describe, those devotees join the exalted associates of the Supreme Lord they worship, either on the respective planets of the demigod representatives of the Lord, or, in some cases, on a Vaikunta planet where the devotees are endowed with special opulences of those demigods. It's high technology. It's like me reading an operator's manual for some digital device, and it's like, Bangsidari, can you help me here? The Vaikunta Vasis whose bodies are just like the transcendental body of the Mahapurusha, the first incarnation of Lord Vishnu for material creation, are those who have achieved Sarupya by worshipping him. They have thousands of arms, legs, heads, and other limbs. In this previous text, the word Adi is used, meaning so on, twice. The first time it indicates that some devotees in Vaikunta assume bodies that resemble those of yet other demigods, like Yamaraj and Aryama, who are material representatives of various personal powers of the Supreme Lord. The second time, Adi indicates that besides the usual 4 arms, some Vaikunta devotees have 8 arms, 12 arms, and more. Who knows what Vaikunta's like, huh? And can we verify or deny? We can't do either. We can say, I don't accept this authority, or we accept the authority. Because other transcendence you can't know except through authority. Shabda Pramana. I was told, it's Shabda Pramana. It's a material Shabda Pramana. We all hear about coronavirus and who knows what's really going on, but one of the things that affects my life is transportation. So the airlines have made different policies, and some of the airlines they won't let people board the plane without accepting one of their gratuitous face masks. And the purpose of that is to add confidence to travelers that they'll be protected. That all the people on the plane are going to do this, and you're going to hand them wipes, and so, etc., etc., etc. And you're going to sterilize the seats, and so forth and so on, to encourage travelers. It's okay, it's safe, you can travel again. We need your patronage, please. So I don't know, but there's some Shabda Pramana from United Airlines and American Airlines, and that's a kind of Shabda Pramana. But transcendence, the kingdom of God, Vaikunta, where are you going to get that Shabda Pramana? Yeah, it has to be from a qualified source. And otherwise you won't know. You can say whatever, I don't believe it, or I believe it, or that's not it, it's something else, or whatever it is. You'll never know. Except faith in Shabda, Aparushaya Shabda Pramana. Text 146 and 45 and 46. Whoever comes to Vaikunta realizes the very same service to the lotus feet of Krishna for which he had developed a taste by the end of his material life. And he realizes that service in full detail, with suitable dress, form, and so on, since each mood of devotion is very dear to the personality of Godhead, and each gives pleasure to the devotee absorbed in it. So that's explaining the different forms as he was standing at the gate, of persons going in, and forms of the Lord in different features, and so on. In Vaikunta, each devotee sees the Supreme Lord Sri Narayan in the form of the particular Lord he worships, with suitable complexion and other qualities. The same kind of ecstasy these devotees previously enjoyed in worshiping the Lord, they continue to relish here in Vaikunta. They obtain it as a unique, uninterrupted, unceasing bliss, newer and newer at every moment. This is Narada giving him a lesson about Vaikunta. As before, these devotees still see their own worshipable Lord. With all his unique features they found charming, his same entourage and everything else, these devotees, each in his favorite mood, constantly hope to serve him, the Lord. They are indeed the wisest of saints, for they have each attained the final perfection of their own faith. Thus they worship their favorite forms of the Lord in the places where he resides, his opulent cities and other abodes, and expand the ocean of happiness. Devotees not exclusively attracted to one form of the Lord, those whose affection is not focused on a singular appearance of his, are ready to serve him in any form. Got all bases covered. Some devotees dedicated themselves to the 8-syllable mantra, one of the Gayatri mantras, or some other mantra for the husband of Lakshmi. And when those devotees left their material bodies, they obtained the shelter of this Vaikunta. All the devotees in Vaikunta enjoy the particular happiness for which they aspired and feel it greater than all others. This creates a hierarchy of tastes, but within it, a simultaneous equality. So here there's discussion about rasa, saying there's some diversity of rasa, but it's all this overarching majesty. In the Lord's appearances on earth, he shows similar varieties and equality. He gives examples. The Lord's forms are the shelter and the treasure of the earth. Among them are Narayana and Dattatreya and Parashuram, the son of Jamadagni, and Kapila. There are those who playfully assume the appearances of deities, and those such as Vishnu and Yogeshwara, whom you have seen on Swargaloka, and other higher planets. There are such various incarnations as Matsyakurma, Mahavaraha, Srimant Nrsimha, and Vamana. Each of these forms of the Lord has his own activities and names, yet all of them are full of in eternality, knowledge and bliss. Though manifesting variety, in substance they are eternally one. There's a long purport explaining all of that, and it's kind of technical, very technical. The differences between them should never be seen as illusory, any more than one should the plurality of the conditioned souls. That there's more than one individual soul, there's multiple jivas. That's not imaginary. And diversity of the forms of the Lord is not imaginary. It's not material imposition upon Brahman. Rather, the differences between the Lord's forms are displays of the energies that underlie his spiritual pastimes. The differences are born of the various moods of his various worshippers. Therefore, this variety does not arise from the difference between an object and its reflected image, as with the sun reflected in water. Rather, the Lord's forms are like the one sun, standing individually in the sky, seen everywhere, but in different ways, in different places. Nice example. The Lord's various forms are one, just as knowledge and happiness, though separate entities, are one, because they are both aspects of the same absolute truth. And a long purport with lots of scriptural references. Thus, although Krishna, his associates in his abode, are seen in various forms, in different places, and in dreams, and other special states of consciousness, they are with perfect consistency one, although many, and they are always real. When any of his forms is satisfied, so too are all his other forms. That one Lord of Vaikunta, Sri Krishna, resides in various places, and appears in many forms, just to give pleasure to all of his multitude of servants. Sri Brahma perceived this truth when he stole Krishna's boys and calves in the forest of Vrindavan. And I realized it when wandering among his many palaces in the city of Dwarka. So he's going to go into a whole other section of topic, and that's, the energy of the Lord. The goddess of fortune, Lakshmi, and her different manifestations and potencies and subpotencies, and so it's a whole tattva. How are we doing on time? After covering that section, he goes back to the forms of the Lord. The incarnations of Sri Krishna, the original personality Godhead, are likewise not different from him, their source. Just as he is eternal and real, so are they. Krishna alone is the source of all incarnations of Godhead. By his infinitely various excellences, distinct from those of everyone else, he is always supreme. Those excellences are known by the term Bhaga. And Sri Krishna is different from Narayana, for when Krishna appears in his descent in the material world, he fully manifests many unique glories that distinguish Krishna alone. Charming, attractive glories that can be known only to hearts softened by prema bhakti. Still, the servants of the Lord's incarnations achieve the greatest happiness in the loving service they prefer, each according to his own mood. According to the way one worships, the Lord awards different results. One who thus reaches the goal he has pursued never feels discontent. But Gopa Kumar is feeling discontent because he hasn't achieved Goloka. The Lord's pastimes expand in unlimited variety. His mind is deeper than millions of oceans. The opulence of his diverse pastimes attracts his devotees to him in so many ways. Who can understand him? By speculation. Even amidst such diversity, the Lord's mercy achieves its highest perfection. For despite the hierarchy of greater and lesser devotees, none are affected by envy or by any such bad feelings towards others, each devotee, following his own nature, attains the final limit of happiness in the service that suits his own taste. Because we're almost reaching an end here, so get ready for an abrupt. It's like GPS telling you reached your destination. Because the Lord's pure devotees are absorbed in their true identity of eternity, knowledge, and bliss, they do not accept inferior happiness as great, nor do they get involved with the petty pleasures of materialists or of sannyasis with impersonalist views. The hierarchy among devotees is only imagined according to their forms of service and according to the happiness each devotee derives from his own relationship with the Lord. Some of these residents of Vaikunta are eternal associates of Lord Krishna, and others have come here by his mercy, having gained the privilege to enter. Although everyone equally enjoys the bliss of worshipping the Lord, certain differences are conceived. Devotees are considered relative outsiders or insiders, depending, for example, on whether they serve the Lord from afar or from nearby. Though all these devotees are equal to the Supreme Lord in being eternal, there is still a natural distinction between the servant and the served. This distinction is eternal and real. These devotees are equal to the Lord in being embodiments of eternity, knowledge, and bliss, just like him. Yet, Sri Krishna has a certain inconceivable mystic potency that attracts these devotees to the sweet ecstasy of worshipping him, and makes them always think that they are servants at his lotus feet. And so it is with his incarnations. They are also non-different from Sri Krishna Dev, for they are complete embodiments of eternity, knowledge, and bliss. But although Sri Krishna is considered non-different from his plenary expansions, he is also distinct from them, and not only because he is their source, but also because he has his own sweet perfections. Some persons say that Lord Krishna is the exclusive embodiment of perfect eternity, knowledge, and bliss. He is, after all, the Supreme Brahman, but his associates are all liberated souls who are also embodiments of Brahman. This equality is created by a special potency of the Lord, a playful aspect of his pure spiritual self. As Krishna assumes various forms for his pastimes, she, that's this potency, special potency of the Lord, a playful aspect of his pure self, she creates varieties of ecstasy in devotional service. I want to read the commentary to this verse that says equal but different amongst the devotees. I'll read it's text 191, and then we're done with reading at least. Even amid such diversity, the Lord's mercy achieves its highest perfection. For despite the hierarchy of greater and lesser devotees, none are affected by envy or by any such bad feelings towards others. Each devotee, following his own nature, attains the final limit of happiness in the service that suits his own taste. Commentary. The Supreme Lord does not behave the same with each devotee. that the Supreme Lord does not behave the same with each devotee does not invalidate the glory of his boundless compassion. Rather, his discriminating dealings with his servants enhance his reputation because every devotee relishes the highest possible happiness. By the nature of devotional service, none of the Lord's servants